And this causeway's pretty here. Some sweet gum are losing their leaves. It's December. And a little bit about the history. This strip of land between Levy Lake and Ledwith Lake that I'm going to get to very soon here was known as the... Ooh, there's a blue heron. Anyway, Levy Lake and Ledwith Lake was the bloodiest place in Florida during the Second Seminole War. More people were killed here than anywhere else. One example is in March 10th, 1840, circuit rider, Methodist minister Reverend McRae was coming from Noonanville, and then within 4 miles of Micanopy, which is not far from here, he was attacked and killed and scalped by Indians, and he was buried on the spot. And later on, record I saw identified it as being at Martin's Point. And so it'd be interesting to find if his grave still exists. It probably is not marked anymore. I doubt if anybody knows about him being buried. But it'd be kind of neat if I hear from some of the residents about Mr. McRae's grave, if anyone finds that. And then in September 1840, there's about 3 or 4 men coming from Noonanville down to Micanopy, and they're also at Martin's Point, where they were ambushed and killed, and the bodies were mutilated so bad they couldn't even identify who they were. And that was also at Martin's Point, which is in this area. And I came down the Levy. I'm going to turn and go down that way. But in this area, this part of the trail is closed. I'm not going to go down there. Heavy hammock area on both sides. On December 28th, 1840 was the Battle of Martin's Point. 5 years to the day after Dade's battle. As a Lieutenant Sherwood was going from Micanopy to Wakahuta, had about 11 soldiers with him, and had the wife of one of the officers, Mrs. Elizabeth Montgomery. Her husband, Lieutenant Montgomery, was sick and stayed in the post in Micanopy. She was going to Fort Wakahuta to visit one of the wives of one of the officers who had just arrived. And when they were in this area, they were ambushed, and most of them was killed. Sergeant Major Carroll, who survived the Battle of Bridgewater a few months later, was killed here at the battle on December 28th. And Fort Carroll down in Polk County is named after him, one of the few Army forts named after an enlisted person. Probably the only one from the Second Seminole War named after an enlisted person. Lieutenant Sanderson was killed and mutilated, and Lieutenant Sherwood. And a few months later, they found his greatcoat and the cloak of Miss Montgomery in a Seminole camp in the Ocala Forest. Mrs. Montgomery was shot getting off her horse going into the wagon, and she was killed with just one shot through the breast. And she was only 19 years old, had only been married 3 months, and it was a very tragic incident from the Second Seminole War. But anyway, that's something to think about, going on the back on the trail with the fall leaves from the sweet gum trees littering the trail.